Badagry was founded in 1425 on a lagoon off the Gulf of Guinea by the Egun people who migrated from Benin Republic. It is the gateway to the west coast, but is the border town to other West African countries like Benin, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and many more. The town is about 57 kilometers by road from Lagos and runs parallel to the sea from Porto Novo. Population as of 2006 was approximately 250,000 people, but today that runs into millions.
This is Badagry, a town that played a very prominent role in the history of slave trade in the country. Today, we will be visiting some prominent sites and meet the people on Community Report here on Channels Television. Just come along, let's take this tour together.
In 1472, a Lisbon merchant called Gomez got to Badagry and established a trade relationship in slave between Portugal and Badagry, which began in 1473, and within a century of his arrival, the town became part of the slave coast, supplying slaves not only to Portugal, but also to other European countries that had plantation on the Caribbean island. A slave market was opened in 1502 in Vlekete. The Vlekete market is one of the oldest markets in West Africa. Opened in 1502, it was held every 5 days and located in the heart of the town of Posoko quarters of Badagry. Millions of Africans were bought from the market as slaves and shipped to European and American countries. In order to make slave trade easier, the Europeans built a jetty in Badagry on which they anchored their vessels in 1510, and Badagry became one of the biggest slave ports in West Africa, exporting at least 17,000 slaves annually. The number of slaves sold in Badagry over 400 years is enormous. Ovi Manuel serves as my guide to the Seriki Abbas Museum. For us to properly understand life in Badagry in the past, we'll visit the Seriki Abbas Museum as well as the public museum. Here relics from the dark era of slave trade are preserved for historic purposes. The environment around the museum is quite serene, with only a handful of visitors.
And I can see Seriki Farimi Williams.
The Barracoon was the store where slaves were kept before the arrival of the European slave ships. Enyanam is a tour guide here, and he attempts to paint a picture of life during the era of slavery.
Here in Badagry, we know this compound as Seriki Abbas compound. Well, the world know this compound as Brazilian Barracoon. A Barracoon is a Portuguese word meaning slave cell. And this compound that we have 40 rooms. And all the 40 rooms, 40 slaves in a room. That's era then, okay? But the federal government of Nigeria now met with the family that they should return to slaves the way it were. And they gather all the items that they use on slave and kept in these two slaves. There are people all over the world come around to see. As I said we have 40 rooms and 40 slaves in a room. So this is cenotaph of the statue of the man that owned this compound. When his parents gave back to him, his bad name was Ifaremile. If I'm Chris Slay, my name is Chris. Slay have to bear their master's name or any name you decided to give to your slave. The first thing they take away from them were their identity. Okay, when his parents gave back to him, his bad name was Ifaremile. He was captured at the age of 6 by Dahomey slave raider. Okay, Dahomey was turned to Benin Republic in 1975. Only we call it Dahomey. Okay, so the first owner that owned him as a slave, when he was captured at the age at Jogaurile, named Abbas. Abbas was the Islamic scholar Abbas made a domestic slave because we have two types of slave, domestic and field slave. The field work on the plantation, while the domestic work in their master's house. So Abbas made a domestic slave. Williams was a white man who used to come from Brazil, and he used to buy slave from this man in Dahomey. We were told that anytime William comes around to buy slave from this man in Dahomey, he used to see this man as a young boy working in the master's house, okay? Then Abbas sold him to William, who took him down to Brazil. Then in Brazil, William too made a domestic slave and gave him education, which was illegal, because slaves were not being sent to school. Through Mr. William, this man speak English, Dutch, and Spanish, and he could read and he could write. But later, when we get to the slave museum, I'll show you the handwriting when he sold a piece of land to some contact here in Badagry at the rate of 16 pounds. Okay. So then in Brazil, okay, William, or let me go this way, in the Leviticus course, in the Old Testament, there's what we call year of Jubilee. The Jubilee is 50 years. It was being ordained by God, but we Rasta we call it Jah. Okay? It was being ordained by God that any slave under you or any property under you, you must give them freedom. So it's not to 50 years when William called the young man, let me give you a freedom on one condition, you work for me. And this man agreed to work for the second owner, Mr. William, who set him free. So when he left Brazil, he first settled at Lagos Island. From Lagos Island, he came down to resettle here. We are told that when he came here, he met chiefs that were slave traders. But this man, or let me go this way, the agreement between two of them, before William gave him the freedom, is that I'm going to establish you. So it was William, the second owner, that built this woman that we are standing on in the year 1840. So that Williams won't be going to Abbas, the first owner in Dahomey, buying slave. He prepared doing the trade with the boy he trained himself. Okay? So Seriki is just a title. In the year 1895, this man became the Seriki Muslimi of this kingdom because he was using his money and position to promote Islam religions here. And the family, they are still hold to the title Seriki of Badagry. So that's why they call him Seriki Williams Abba. The name of the first owner, the second owner, and the title that he had. Okay. But before we go in, Brazilian Barracoon, let me quickly show you something. You see, when the European came, this is the money our forefathers used to spend then. We call it cowrie, Yoruba call it Oweyo. And they refuse to accept this from our hand, and them say they prefer to do a trade note by trade by barter with us, exchanging good for goods. So the white men, they give you one umbrella value 40 cedis, and the only surviving umbrella we have in a museum. Then later I will show you guys. Then we will talk between what 40 umami. A bottle of gin go for 10 cedis. But there was oral story here in Badagry, a man that exchanged the wife and the daughter to collect a bottle of a gin. These are cannon guns. The long cannon gun go for 100 heads. The small one 40, and then a Dane gun go for 40 cedis. We blacks of Africa, what do we do with the Dane gun? We use it to fight ourselves so that we get more slaves and sell to the European. A ceramibo, we call it breaking point in our houses. The white men, we give one ceramibo, we give them 10 slaves. We have 5 for salt inside the museum. Then the mirror and the kura bead, here in Badagry, if you gather the mirror and the kura bead, on the negotiation level, like you might say 2 slaves, it depends on your bargaining power. Let me use that word, bargaining power with the European. You might say 2 slaves, I might say 3. My sister there might say 4. So it depends how you could bargain with the European.